Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading Corporation. You are tuned in to our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash. And hopefully you're actually subscribed to this podcast. And if you haven't done so, we'd love for you to do so right away so we can keep you informed of some of the things that have been changing in our financial markets, in our economy, things that are taking place with our currency. And to discuss this here today, I have my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, Chris, we've got a lot to talk about. There's certainly been a continual and continuous momentum that is building with the alliance known as BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They now are enlisting numerous other nations, specifically in 2024. They're foreseeing there are going to be 7 additional countries that will apply to become part of this alliance. Now, Before we get too far into this, I've been doing some reading and listening to some things outside of our podcast pertaining to BRICS. And what I find interesting about it is that there are still some that are suggesting that this whole situation that continues to develop with BRICS is not a problem. It's not going to be a problem for the US dollar, for the US economy, for the US markets. But yet, you look at the information and the data out there that what's really taking place as this BRICS alliance continues to grow, there's really no way that I can see it's not going to ultimately create some form of a disruption, because it is the specific intent of this alliance to de-dollarize their countries, which pretty universally speaking, they all say that by de-dollarizing their country, it's going to, number one, make them less dollar reliant and hence not a victim, if you will, to what U.S. policies are as it relates to their finances, their country economy, their GDP, et cetera. But the other thing it will naturally do is bolster their own currency and economy. It's going to strengthen their whole financial system. So when you look at this, and now these 7 countries joining, what in your mind, Chris, would you say would stop this momentum from building? Or some of these worst case scenarios, are these people who suggest that BRICS is not an issue, are they right? I mean, how is this going to not be a problem for the US dollar?
Yeah, well, one thing I haven't heard is any of those people discussing how this is beneficial for the dollar. And it's either good or bad for the dollar. And if their stated goal is to dethrone the dollar, de-dollarize the world, and they're gaining momentum, they have more and more countries expressing interest, more nations joining. That's pulling influence and power away from the dollar. So I think with 100% certainty we can say it's not good for the dollar. Now people can debate, how bad is it? How quickly are we going to see the effects? But I really don't think that you can say that it's not having an effect. And I think one thing that some of these people point to is maybe the size of these other nations, and some of the ones discussed in here, Thailand, Malaysia, Colombia, Pakistan, Vietnam, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. Any one of them on their own, is that going to wreak havoc on the dollar? No. But what you have to look at is their collective power, and that's really the whole point of what BRICS is doing here. Is they're taking a bunch of nations that have been underrepresented in their minds in the world financial stage, and giving them collective bargaining power, right? Like a union or anything else. So it definitely has an effect. And Russia and China, I mean, they're actively recruiting nations. I mean, they're traveling around trying to get people on board. Their next major summit is coming up here in October, and they're expected to announce even further expansion. So this isn't going anywhere. It's certainly not going anywhere positive or beneficial towards the dollar. And it looks pretty bad. So, are we going to have a collapse in 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years? I can't say. But I do know it's not a good thing that is happening. We shouldn't be excited for this, at least here in the United States.
Sure. Well, and that's a perfect lead into the second article we're going to look at today. As you mentioned, these countries, we're talking about powerhouse countries that, many other nations throughout the world, they're basically told this is the way the milk gets in the coconut. This is the way the financial world is going to spin.
Yep.
What's kind of a different slant, and we've not discussed this before, again, in this next article, is one of the things that BRICS is doing as they advance, and that word just continues to come up, de-dollarization. They are aiming to empower unheard countries. And what I have to believe, it's the first article of this kind that I've seen, and what I have to believe is very significant about it is that, you have these countries that are underdeveloped, comparatively speaking, who now are being given a voice. And, what it's doing is it's just collectively making this BRICS alliance more credible, stronger, broader. And the message is the same, big or small. And it's very simple. We're taking away your need to be dollar dependence, the need to do all your transacting with dollars. We're giving you an alternative to that. And in addition to that, we're going to empower or strengthen your currency, your local or domestic currency, which makes it a home run for any country out there who is looking to better their situation for tomorrow. So what do you think that this is a sign of more of what is yet to come, as meaning like, are we going to see more countries like this jump on board? And finally, it's kind of like that straw that breaks the camel's back, where there's just so much momentum and so many different nations that have jumped on board. It's like a freight train. There's going to be no way to stop it.
Yeah. I don't see why more and more nations wouldn't join, quite honestly. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the dollar. It's what I use every day. So I wish that wasn't the case. But, really, with these forums, and that's one of the things they're talking about in the second article, is a forum they're actually doing right now called the BRICS Plus Forum. And they're inviting other people in. So they've invited, they say here, about 200 mayors from 21 different countries to come and attend this forum. And really what they're doing is giving these countries and these people a platform where they can express their opinions and have some influence on, monetary policy. And, like you said, give them some freedom from the US dollar. So, I sort of view it, maybe this is too simplistic, but kind of like a relationship. Right now these countries have currently had a relationship with the US dollar where we just tell them what to do. And we have all the cards, we're going to pick the restaurant and they're going to go and eat whether they like it or not. And now they have another option of the BRICS nations coming in and giving them a say in things. And so, from a dating perspective, people like to be heard. They like their opinion to be out there. They want to have a say in their future, in their economies. And, I think that it's pretty tempting for them. Now, long term, do I expect, Russia and China to just, lay down and give these other nations everything they want? No. Obviously, they're doing this right now. They're being very inviting and agreeable in order to grow, their size and their scope. And obviously, they're still the big players in the room. They're going to steer things. But, the U.S. really isn't doing anything to try and woo these other nations and bring more people into the fold and build support on our side. So, I think we're just going to continue to see this sort of steadily advancing movement or war against the dollar. And again, it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but it's continually happening, and we're losing power and influence. And ultimately, that's going to lead to massive inflation for all of us that rely on the dollar, especially in our country. And that's going to hurt when you have to go to the store and buy your everyday essentials, and you're paying 2, 3, 4 times the price. I mean, with hyperinflation, it could get even worse.
Yeah, and I think your earlier point was spot on, Chris, where you don't hear anybody saying what good is going to come out of BRICS gaining momentum for the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
I mean, people may deny that it exists, but it does exist because there's a huge platform. I mean, you're talking, like you mentioned, 200 mayors that are getting
Mm-hmm.
together to talk about this. That's not a non-issue.
Right.
And in all the podcasts that we've done where we've been covering this, what I've always found just to be very simplistic and somewhat unique to this whole dynamic of BRICS, their message, their sales pitch is basically two things. Every article, we're going to de-dollarize and we're going to strengthen your local currency. That's it. That's their message. It's not. There's no like hidden things. There's no hidden agenda per se. It's just plain and simple. This is what it's going to do for you. So you mentioned the war on cash, like our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. For those of you tuning in, if you have not already contacted our office to receive your free copy of The Secret War, do it today. No obligation for doing so. It will get you some great information on some of the things that are happening, the seen and the unseen, as it relates to our monetary system, our financial system, et cetera. So to do that, you see your phone number there at 1-800-289-2646, or you can visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. Chris, thanks for all the information, and we will continue to follow this developing concept or alliance of BRICS. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.